Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshak if you want to call me by my in-game name. If you've been keeping up with your Hearthstone news, you know roughly an hour ago, probably much longer than that once you see this video, but an hour for me, that the new expansion for Hearthstone has hit the floor, the Witchwood. There's some exciting new stuff in here. There's a lot to unpack for those of you players who don't really keep up with the news. Day to day. Not only are we getting an expansion of cards, but we're also seeing a rotation of cards that are leaving standard mode. They're not getting rid of them from the game, guys. They're just going to a wild mode. So they're leaving standard, and we'll cover that in this video. We'll also cover all the cards that they talked about and have shown us so far in the Witchwood, and we'll also talk about a little bit different with their pre-order. They changed it slightly, and then also I've got a couple questions towards the end of this video for other YouTube exclusive videos that would actually go along with this rotation, and just my opinions on some very important subjects and decks and all that stuff, but we'll get into it. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Year of the Raven. There's a couple new posts that people say, oh, it's a new Year of the Raven. What does that mean? So originally it was the Year of the Kraken, then it was the Mammoth, and now it's the Raven. With each new year comes with the first expansion of the year, which is the Witchwoods, but we're also going to see a rotation of these three sets leaving standard mode. So we're losing out on the Old Gods, Karazhan, Mean Streets. Again, you're not losing these cards from your collection. I know some of you are like, Rob, we know this, but a lot of players don't, and they're very confused about it, and I get questions about this a lot on stream and in videos. It's like, what's happening to my collection? I don't understand. What are we losing? You're not losing anything. It's just standard mode needs to be fresh. They don't want to have, this huge pool of cards in standard mode, and the deck, it's just every card game has some form of formats. We have currently Hearthstone, we have wild format and standard format. Wild, you play with anything. Standard is just the last 2 years of bracket cards. So with the new year, we've got to lose out on some of the older stuff, which is these three sets. So the pool of cards is actually going to be very small. And as we, progress through the year, the amount of cards in the pool of current cards playable in standard mode will increasing diversity. But either way, whenever there's a rotation and a new set, the meta gets shaken up so much. There's no copy pasta for at least 2 days. It takes them at least 3 to 4 days to figure out what are some pretty good decks to copy pasta, which gives players that love to deck build and love to try new things, the new expansion coming out along with the rotation is a perfect time to try some wacky shit and actually do pretty well with it, because the people who don't know how to build decks and all they do is copy pasta, those guys are going to have a miserable time in the first week, because like I said, there's not a best deck with a rotation and an expansion. Shit gets pretty wild. Wild. Anyway, bad joke. So from there, just wanted to let you know that there is that going to occur as well with this expansion. It is not just the It's not just the new expansion. We're also seeing the rotation happen. So with the announcement today of the new set, you guys are probably like, Rob, all we care about is the new cards. Head on over to the new cards. So the first card we're going to talk about, let's pull it up. Hopefully, not a good snap. Repeat that. There we go. That's a nice snap. We have Baku the Moon Eater. Huge card, neutral legendary minion. I'm also editing this part with Premiere and not through OBS, so hopefully it looked pretty good and the snap didn't sound awful, but regardless. At the start of the game, if your deck has only odd cost cards, upgrade your hero power and he's a beast. So this is very similar to the Prince mechanic that we saw before. I believe Prince was a 5 or 6 mana card and he was a 5/6, and he actually added legendaries to your deck at the start of the game. So you don't actually have to draw this card. It's just if you have this in your deck, it meets the requirements, the effect will trigger. And upgrading your hero power to me is really, really good. We've seen how good Justicar is. So in my opinion, if we can see this upgrade hero power card and we like Warrior, and Warrior is going to get 4 armor, which is kind of the old Justicar mechanic, Control Warrior is the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, Control Warrior is the only thing that I ever comes to mind. But this is actually pretty exciting for this. It can only have odd cost cards. So we have cards like Shield Slam and Execute, which make the break. The even cards, we even keep Brawl. What even cards? I guess there's the weapon, right? The new weapon. I can't think of Blade. Man, I haven't played with Warriors at all, so I don't know. But anyway, we lose out on the 4 mana weapon that has Whirlwind twice. Ravaging Ghoul. Actually, it's rotating out. Oh gosh, this is gonna be crazy. Anyway, I think this is a really good card. Not just only in Warrior, but we might see it in some other decks as well. But this is gonna be a very control heavy card. I mean, you're not gonna see this. Maybe Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking of maybe like some face hunter shenanigans because it's a beast and, you know, upgrading the hero power to deal 3 per turn. And then, like, if you look at hunter, what they have for odd cards, you know, turn 1, they have the, I can't even think of the card now. Anyway, they have Animal Companion and Kill Command on 3. You know, they have their Spell Stone for 5, but if they don't have even numbers, then they can't play their 2-mana Secrets. It'll be interesting. But the first thing I look at this card, the first thing I see is Control Warrior. And it's not Eagle Horn Bow. It's the other Candle Shot. Jesus, Rob, you're a professional. JK, you're a Hearthstone player. You need to know these things, man. You need to get in the groove. The next card we're going to talk about, cool card either way, very cool mechanic. The next card we're going to talk about is Greymane, the 6-mana 6/5. So the stats are pretty good. Normally for 5-6 mana, we roughly see 5/5, 6/6, 6/5s, 5/6s, somewhere in there. Sometimes we see 7/7s if we would have looked at that Shaman the Shambler, the Grumble. How do I know that guy? Grumble Shambler or whatever his name is, but I can't get like Candle Shot right. At the start of the game, if your deck has only even cost cards, your starting hero power costs 1. So again, at the start of the game, regardless of drawing this card or not, and then you have to have even cards and your hero power costs 1. This is very similar to Raza after the nerf. Raza before the nerf, you know, you just had to have no duplicates, and so now this costs 1. I mean, literally all they've done is keep the same mechanic as Raza, but they've changed the requirements. So if we look at the decks that currently benefit from this, it's currently Priest is what played, you know, Raza Priest with the whole Kazakus package, Mage, but now he's neutral, so maybe we might see some other classes that, you know, didn't meet the requirements of being within the gang because, you know, you had to play the 3 gangs or whatever. Or there's only 3 classes per gang, and then, you know, it's not like Warrior could play Kazakus or anything like that. But now Warrior can play Greymane, and then the hero power costs 1, plus it gets upgraded, but then you have no other cards in your deck because you don't have even cost, you don't have odd cost, so you just have these 2 cards in your deck. Okay, actually, you lied, because you can't have one or the other because the other cancels out the other, right? So you only can play one of these guys in your deck. I don't know why you'd want to play 2 anyway, but I think the other guy's a little bit better than Greymane. I think the other guy is a little bit better. I'd rather upgrade my hero power and it costs 2 than it costs 1, because later in the game, it costing 1 versus 2 isn't really that big of a deal. And the upgrade, like, I'd rather my hero power just do more than cost less. I mean, it costing less is better in the early game. So this might be more of like an aggressive based hero power, because you could like utilize the hunter hero power and it costs 1 per turn and weaving in 2 damage for 1 mana at the beginning of games. So you get to play turn 1, you don't draw Candle Shot, you hero power. Turn 2, you 1-drop hero power. Turn 3, you 2-drop hero power. Like, you're being able to weave in a hero power so much. So I think classes that the hero power significantly either impacts the board, like Paladin and or like Hunter, who just hits you in the face a million times, is pretty good. I mean, that's my first kind of look at this guy, but almost it's impossible to tell a lot of these cards without actually seeing them being played, you know, like trying them out ourselves. So the next card we're going to look at actually has a new mechanic too. It's a warrior card. It's the Commander, the 4-mana 2/5 Rush, which we'll go over in a second. Battlecry, gain +3 attack this turn. Rush is basically charge, but you can't attack your opponent's face. You can only combat other creatures. So very similar to cards like the Devilsaur, which was the 8-mana 7/7 in a hunter deck. When it comes into the battlefield, it has charge, but it says it can only attack minions. So they're basically going to change that card. Actually, I don't know if they would change the context of that card, because when you bring the card out of your deck for free and you don't play it, it can actually hit face, or if it gets summoned, it can hit face. So I don't know if they're going to change that card to say Rush or not. But basically the Rush effects has already been in the game. It just didn't have like a nickname for it, which it has now. So this is basically a 4-mana 5/5 can attack another creature when it comes out. That's good. I mean, it goes down to 2, but the important part is it can do something right away. So when you have a card that, when you play it, can either kill another card and make a favorable trade, or it can just trade off itself. Like this trades into everything. This could almost sometimes kill some 5 or 6 mana cards. So for 4 mana, not bad at all. And it's a battle cry. So there's not like a requirement. You just play the card. Well, I guess if it gets summoned from your deck for free, then it doesn't get the battle cry. But I don't think you'd be playing cards that pull things out of your deck with a deck that you'd be running this card anyway. And also, if we play the new card that upgrades your hero power, this card would not be played in our Control Warrior deck. Not that this card has Control Warrior tendencies, but it's still good to keep in mind the synergies between cards that we actually just went over. So I think this card is really good, and I think it'll see play. I don't think it's like a super game changer. It's not like, oh yeah, we have the commander. We're got a 5/5 rush. We're making Control Warrior great again. This card is solely not going to do it by itself. But will we see maybe some tempo kind of style warrior? Maybe. This card definitely would fit into the old, like, there was a tempo style like Dragon Warrior, which was, you know, a very good deck, and it actually met the tier 1 or tier 2 slot for a while on ladder, and it kind of dissipated because of course the dragons eventually rotated out. But this kind of has the same kind of like be able to make trades, do stuff on turn 4. If you don't have a weapon, we can play a minion. The minion can attack directly. And warrior has been a class that originally it was supposed to be very chargy. The class was supposed to have a lot of like rush, charge, you know, damage your own minions, buff them, you know, take damage, gain armor, deal armor to X minions. So, I mean, it's good that they keep pushing cards that have like that kind of warrior smell to them, if you know what I'm saying. Warriors do have a smell. Or do they? Anyway, next card is the Phantom, a 3-mana 2/4 Echo. Rob, what the fuck does Echo mean, dude? And he has taunt. Echo is basically, you can play this card again this turn if you have the mana. So let's say, for example, you have 6 mana, you play Phantom, you get to play another Phantom. Like, you don't have to have 2 Phantoms. The Phantom is another Phantom because it has Echo. Echo. So, you can play, technically, 10 mana, you can play 3 of these bad boys. You get to play a 6 mana, 6 attack, 12 HP taunt minion. So, more so, not the power level of this card, which I think is cool. I think the ability, I've said this so many times, is cards that are able to be, you can play them at different times in the game, and obviously playing them at a particular time when they're most effective is the best method of that card, but I like cards that have flexibility, and you can play them. You know, you could play a card early in the game and it'd be really, really good, or you could still play that same card later in the game and it still has some value. And there's a lot of cards in Hearthstone that once it reaches past like a certain point, the card is basically useless. You want to draw it in the early game, and if you don't, it sucks later on. Cards like this allows you to have, you know, you can play this on turn 3, but if you play it on turn 6, you still get 2 of them. And if you play this on turn 9, you get, you know, 3 of them. But cards that are only just a 3-mana 2/4 with taunt or something like that, like, that's a really bad card to draw later on in the game, because first of all, you're not utilizing your mana, and it doesn't actually do anything but provide you with a taunt, which sometimes is pretty good, but most of the time you would like to see that card be a little bit better. So cards like this allows it to be really flexible, and I think it's actually going to be a pretty good arena card just because of that flexibleness of it. So it's like you top decked a 3-mana card in the late game when both of you have like 1 to 2 cards in hand, but actually you got 3 minions out of the deal because this card has Echo. So I think this is more of not really a competitive card in the sense of being played in tournament decks, but definitely a really good value kind of card in arena where you don't have a lot of the options, and you're not able to build decks, you know, around certain archetypes. You're just given what you have, and that's just kind of like the randomly generated stuff, and you want to squeeze out as much value as possible, definitely in the late game when both players are top decking, because there's no card draw in your deck because you had to build from a random base of cards. The next card we're going to talk about is the Pumpkin Peasant, 3-mana 4/2 lifesteal. Each turn this is in your hand swap. It's attack and health. So I like the effect of this card is, I don't want to keep saying cool, but like, you know, the whole thing, like this guy turns into a worgen when he's a 4/2, and then he turns back into a human when he's a 2/4. So the actual, like, you know, changing and the stats getting reversed is kind of cool. But is this card actually good? No, I don't think this card is really good at all. I think lifesteal is a weird thing to see on this card. I would have liked to see like regeneration or something. And at the end of the turn, if it doesn't take any more combat, like if it doesn't die, it heals himself, because I like to think worgens have some ability to like heal quicker or something. I don't know. Lifesteal makes sense too, but I would have liked it to see have the gargoyle effect and make this card like a 3. If it turns into a 3/3, then it swaps, right? So I would have liked to see this card maybe be like a 4-mana 3/4 and it switches, and at the end of the turn, if it doesn't die, it heals up. That would make this card really nice. I don't think it would be broken at that point. Or this card could have been like a 3/3, and at the every other turn it does switch, and it gets like +1 attack or +1 health. or something like that. You know what I mean? So the card's actually playable, because right now the card's not playable. Like, they printed a really fucking cool card and it's unplayable, in my opinion. Like, why would I play this card? Like, the 4/2, like, if it had stealth, yes, the card is definitely playable. The card doesn't have stealth. You played a 3 mana 4/2. If I upgrade my mage hero power, I'm gonna spend 2 mana and I'm gonna kill you, dude. I can charge into it with a 2 mana Murloc and kill it. If it's a 2/4 with lifesteal, I guess that's kind of annoying, but at the same time, is it really that annoying? Because there's Tar Creeper that has 3 attack and 5, and it actually has taunt, not lifesteal. So, I don't know. I'm just looking at what we have currently, what this currently does, and it could have been, I think, a lot cooler in regards to being able to actually play the cool card. A good job there, guys. But I could be wrong. Could be like the best 3-drop in the game. And moving to our last card that they revealed for today is the Soul Thief. Looks badass in my opinion. It's a cool looking card. It's a 7 mana 3/3. The stats suck, Rob. It's never gonna see play. Little Timmy, let me read the card, dude. Replace your hand with a copy of your opponent's. Super powerful. Super powerful card we have here, guys. So, late in the game, you're either playing a pump and dump deck, just throw up on the board, reload, throw up on the board, steal your opponent's hand, or you're playing a control deck. You know you're playing against another control deck. You throw up on the board. They retaliate with a big AoE or something. So it's like you're checking for AoE. Normally you wouldn't do it, but because you run Soul Thief, you can. So you pump and dump on the board. You get it out there. You're either going to push lethal or push a ton of damage. If they use their AoE, you baited AoE, you play Soul Thief, you steal back their hand. All the cards that you threw out there in the first place got replaced, and you got to see them use the removal tool that you were trying to bait them out in the first place with. So, Soul Thief, I don't think she's going to be like... Like, obviously, if you have 2 cards in your hand or 3 cards in your opponent has 7, 8, like, this card is so good. The problem comes when you're ahead. So this is like a comeback card in a value game against control decks. So this will see very specific play in certain decks, and it's going to be really good in those decks, but I don't think this card is going to be, like, seen a lot. And if it does end up seeing a lot, then we have a very control-heavy meta, and shit got real fast. But, like, let's say if I'm playing Control Warrior and my hand is, you know, anywhere between, like, 7 to 8, 9 cards or something like that, and I'm playing against an aggro deck, or not even an aggro deck, I'm playing against, let's say, another, like, mid-range deck. Maybe this is, like, a mid-range card, right? And they just keep putting out threats, and then eventually their threats run out. They just drop a Soul Thief, and now they have my hand. Not that I don't think that'd save them, so maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say what this card will fit into, and it's a neutral, so it can really fit in anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of flexibility with this card, with it being neutral. And its ability is very powerful, which is why the stats of it suck donkey poop. Like, the stats are horrible. 7 mana 3/3, like, my goddy gee golly gosh, that 3 mana 4/3 with lifesteal is looking real thick compared to this girl. But the ability of this girl is crazy. Especially if your opponent's running like a combo deck. You can like pull pieces of their combo and use it against them. Like, ugh. You know what would have been even... I think this card would be absolutely fucking broken. Like, broken if you replaced each other's hands. And there was no way, like, you would fuck over so... Like, oh, that's so good. I mean, I hope that never exists. But a 7 mana 3/3 swap hands with your opponent, like, would be so disgusting. Like, that would destroy combo decks. Like, I would piss, yeah, let's just not even talk about that, because that's not going to get printed. Anyway, so the thing I wanted to talk about before the end of this video, for those of you who are still here and watching this video, I care about your opinion more than the person who watches for 2 minutes, tells me I suck and then moves on. So we have the rotation occurring and the new expansion. I wanted to kind of take a look at the expansions that are rotating and pick out what I think are the most key cards in those, and then the decks that those fit into, and then how the new expansion and what everything is going to pan out to be, and what decks are leaving. So, like, right now there's quite a few tier 1 and 2 decks that are losing a bunch of cards, and then when the new expansion comes out, will those decks still be, you know, will they be competitive? You know, how much are they affected? You know, if those cards are removed, what new cards would we have to see to make the, like, have those decks maybe continue to see play, or maybe there's modifications to those decks that make it so they kind of still have some of the core values, but they utilize some of the new cards to be able to pull even, you know, more juice, or they pull the deck in a completely different direction, which allows for, you know, a little bit different play style. So I'd like to hear your opinion on if you'd like to see me, like to see a YouTube exclusive video talking about, again, important cards that are leaving us and the decks that those cards are correlated to. So with that, thank you for watching, guys. Really excited to bringing you some more new Hearthstone expansion content very, very soon. I'll do my best to give it to you as fast as possible, and have a great day. See you in the next video. Of course, I'm Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.